Her bravery was inspirational, extraordinary. She received the George Cross. She would never accept any recognition for her special contribution without reminding us that she was the face of a much wider body of operations.
Somewhere between a woman who spent 2 decades earning her place inside a family that once treated her as an outsider, and a woman who has spent that same stretch of years quietly becoming the most trusted face the monarchy has left. A shift has been taking place. It has never been announced. It has never needed to be. It has simply been happening. Patronage by patronage, appointment by appointment, warrant by warrant, until the shape of it became too consistent to explain away as chance. Buckingham Palace just quietly handed Prince William and Catherine a title that used to belong only to the King and Queen. It is not a crown. It is not a public ceremony with cameras waiting outside a cathedral. The title is called Grantor of Royal Warrants, and most people watching this have never heard of it, because the palace has never gone out of its way to explain what it actually does. Once the mechanics of that title are understood, the announcement stops looking small. Starting in 2026, William and Catherine will hold the legal authority to grant one of the oldest honours in British commercial history, the Royal Warrant.
Now, Buckingham Palace says the Koh-i-Noor diamond will be used in the coronation. Catherine, the Queen Consort, will be crowned with...
It is one of the world's largest cut diamonds. It's stunning. It's 105 carats, it weighs 20 grams. It's enormous when you look at it.
To companies and brands they personally choose to endorse. That authority has belonged exclusively to King Charles and Queen Camilla since the day he took the throne. No one else has ever held it during this reign. Not a courtier, not a senior advisor, not any other member of the family. Now, for the first time, it does not belong only to them. A royal warrant looks like a small thing on paper. It is a badge stitched into packaging, printed on stationery, painted above a shop door. It tells the public that a business has supplied the royal household consistently, year after year, and earned the right to say so. Nearly 600 of these warrants have gone out under Charles and Camilla since his accession. Every single one carried their names, and only their names. Whoever holds the power to grant that badge holds a piece of the monarchy's authority in miniature. It is the power to say, publicly and permanently, this is what we choose to stand behind. That power has now, for the first time in this reign, been extended past the King and Queen themselves and handed to the next generation, years before either of them is anywhere close to the throne. On its own, this could be treated as a footnote, a single line buried in a long list of royal announcements, forgotten within a week. But it does not stand alone. It is landing in the middle of a pattern that has been quietly building for nearly 2 years, one decision at a time, almost none of it reported as connected in the moment it happened. This is not the first sign that institutional weight inside the House of Windsor has been shifting away from Camilla and toward Catherine. It is simply the most recent sign, and the most formal one yet. And once every piece of that pattern is laid side by side, in order, the timeline becomes very hard to dismiss as a coincidence. Because this is not a story about a single announcement. It is a story about a pattern, quiet enough that most people missed it entirely. Deliberate enough that once it is traced from the beginning, it starts to look less like ordinary royal housekeeping and more like something that was allowed to unfold on purpose. Before that pattern is laid out in full, there is something worth doing right now, together. This channel exists to trace exactly these kinds of quiet institutional shifts, the ones nobody announces out loud, but everyone can eventually see once the pieces are placed side by side. Subscribing means never missing the moment those pieces click into place, and there are several more still ahead in this very story. Hi viewers, before the story goes any further, answer honestly in the comments below. Do you think Camilla deserves more credit than she gets? Yes or no? That question matters, because everything that follows depends on how the public actually feels, not on how the palace wants the public to feel. And the public's feelings, tracked carefully over the last 2 years, tell a very specific and consistent story, one the palace has never said out loud, but has clearly been listening to all the same.
With Catherine beside him, our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the centre ground.
To understand why a single warrant announcement carries this much weight, the story has to go back much further than 2026. It has to go back to 2005, to a promise the palace made to calm an angry and grieving public, a promise that was never supposed to matter this much, made at a time when nobody imagined that William's university girlfriend would one day become the reason that old promise quietly unraveled. It was a promise built on fear, on timing, and on a public still deeply loyal to a woman who was no longer alive to see any of it play out. That promise, and everything that happened after it, is where this story truly begins. To understand what changes in 2026, the story cannot start there. It has to start almost 900 years earlier, in a version of England that had no cameras, no headlines, and no palace press office. Only a king, a court, and the tradespeople desperate to serve it. The year was 1155. The king was Henry II, and the document he signed that year, granting a royal charter to London's Weavers' Company, is the earliest known formal link between the crown and the people who supplied it. It gave those weavers something no gold could purchase outright: proof, in writing, that the monarch himself had chosen them. That single charter did not create an empire of commerce overnight, but it planted something that would quietly grow for the next 9 centuries, branch by branch, reign by reign, until it became one of the most recognizable symbols in British business history.
In each of our lives, there are moments which change us forever. Sometimes it's individual. We have watched and felt alongside the dignity of the King and the Princess of Wales as they have coronation.
For a long stretch of that early history, this recognition did not come to individual shopkeepers or craftsmen. It came to entire guilds, groups of tradespeople bound together by trade and by oath, each one hoping to be counted among the crown's chosen suppliers. Weavers, mercers, goldsmiths, tanners. These were the earliest versions of what would one day become warrant holders, though the word itself did not yet exist in the way it is understood today. It took several more centuries for the system to take the shape that still, in its bones, survives now. By the 1400s, the role of formally choosing the royal household's tradespeople had shifted to a single figure, the Lord Chamberlain, the most senior officer inside the household itself. It was the Lord Chamberlain who began issuing what came to be called the Royal Warrant of Appointment, a formal document naming an individual tradesperson as an official supplier to the Crown. That basic structure, a named officer of the household formally appointing a supplier, is essentially unchanged even now. Even earlier fragments of this record survive, if one is willing to dig for them. A document held in Britain's Public Records Office shows that in the year 1300, during the reign of Edward I, a man named Reginald de Thunderley from London supplied 14 uniforms for royal valets, while another supplier, recorded simply as John the Fruiterer, provided apples and pears for the royal table. These are not symbolic entries. They are literal, dated proof that the practice of formally recording who supplied the crown and celebrating that relationship in writing is nearly as old as the English monarchy's own administrative record-keeping itself. William Caxton, widely remembered today as England's first printer, was himself appointed King's Printer in 1476, one among a growing list of tradespeople across this early period whose skill earned them formal, written royal recognition. Some of the earliest named warrant holders on record sound almost unbelievable today. In the reign of Henry VIII, a man named Thomas Hewitt was formally appointed to, in the language of the time, serve the court with swans and cranes and all manner of wildfowl. Decades later, records from the 1680s describe warrant holders supplying the palace with hats, watches, and even dental work, a haberdasher of hats, standing alongside an operator for the teeth, on the same list of appointed suppliers. It is easy to laugh at how specific and strange some of these old warrants sound.
William and Catherine are making this commitment very much in the public eye, and because of that they will need the support, the solidarity, and the prayers of all those who are watching today. We have to be witnesses in an active sense, the kind of witnesses who really support what's going on.
But underneath the strangeness is the same principle that governs the system today. Someone, somewhere, proved themselves reliable enough, skilled enough, trusted enough, that the Crown put its name behind them in writing. The system briefly disappeared entirely during the reign of Oliver Cromwell, when the monarchy itself was abolished, and with it, the practice of granting royal favour to tradespeople. It was Charles II who restored both the throne and the warrant system together, re-establishing a tradition that has now run, almost without interruption, for well over 3.5 centuries since. By the 1700s, something new began happening. Royal tradesmen started physically displaying the royal arms, the Crown's own coat of arms, on their shop fronts, their packaging, their letterhead. This is the moment the warrant stopped being a private arrangement between the household and a supplier, and became something the public could see with their own eyes, walking down a street in London. A shop with the royal arms above its door was making a public claim, understood instantly by anyone passing by. The Crown itself trusts what happens inside these walls. One of the most famous early examples of this belongs to Josiah Wedgwood, whose creamware so pleased Queen Charlotte that she permitted him to style himself, in his own advertising, as Potter to Her Majesty, and to call his creamware Queensware. That single royal endorsement helped propel Wedgwood toward the kind of global fame that still carries his name today, centuries later, on shelves and in museums around the world. It is one of the clearest early proofs of exactly how powerful this kind of recognition could be, long before anyone called it marketing. Long before any of that formal structure existed, there was already a department inside the royal household whose entire job was to track exactly this kind of relationship. As early as the 1200s, an office known as the Great Wardrobe handled the household's accounts and administration, quietly keeping records of every transaction between the Crown and the tradespeople who supplied it. Those records, kept centuries before anyone thought to call this a formal system of warrants, are the earliest surviving proof that the Crown itself understood the value of documenting exactly who it trusted and exactly what it received from them. As different trades organized themselves more formally through the medieval period, they grouped into what became known as livery companies, structured associations built around specific crafts, from bakers to mercers to goldsmiths to tanners. It was through these livery companies that much of the earliest royal patronage flowed, long before an individual shopkeeper could expect to be personally recognized by name. A tradesperson's status within a livery company, and that company's relationship with the household, mattered as much in this early period as any individual reputation. By the 1720s, individual businesses had begun building entire identities around this kind of royal trust. In 1730, a comb maker named Juan Firminius Floris opened a small shop with his wife Elizabeth at 89 Jermyn Street in London, selling perfume, combs and shaving products. 90 years later, in 1820, that same shop received its first royal warrant, appointed as smooth-pointed comb maker to His Majesty, King George IV. Floris still holds a warrant today, its royal arms built directly into the storefront on Jermyn Street, a physical link between an 18th century perfumer and the 21st century monarchy still standing on the same London street. One detail from that early period is worth including, because it explains a design choice still visible on shop fronts today. After a series of businesses lost their warrants and were forced to remove their displayed royal arms, the rules changed to require that any arms mounted on a building be detachable, capable of being physically taken down should the warrant ever be withdrawn. Other names from this same era of British commerce built their entire global reputations on exactly this kind of recognition. Fortnum and Mason, the London grocers, Burberry, the clothing house, and Cadbury, the chocolate maker, all count among the businesses whose international fame was built in part on the quality that a royal warrant publicly certified, generation after generation, to customers who had never set foot in Britain but recognized the royal arms on sight regardless. Before her reign, the number of royal warrant holders in Britain sat somewhere around 100. By the time her 63 years on the throne ended, that number had climbed past 2,000. Part of that growth came from the sheer scale of the British Empire during her reign, an empire whose colonies demanded enormous amounts of goods and materials, feeding new companies eager to prove themselves worthy of royal recognition. Part of it came from the Industrial Revolution itself, an era producing new products, new industries, and new tradespeople faster than any period before it. It was this explosion of warrant holders, proud of what they had earned, that led directly to a moment worth lingering on. On the 25th of May, 1840, a gathering of what the era called Her Majesty's tradesmen held a celebration in honor of Queen Victoria's birthday. It went well enough that they decided to make it an annual tradition. That annual gathering eventually formalized itself into an association, and that association became the Royal Warrant Holders Association, the very body that still administers this entire system today, nearly 2 centuries later. It was, in its earliest form, simply a dinner among proud tradespeople who wanted to celebrate what they had achieved together. Reports from those early Victorian dinners describe strict rules of attendance. If a warrant holder could not attend in person, a son could stand in for him. If a business was held by a woman, she was permitted to send a gentleman to represent her at the table. Queen Victoria herself came to admire the tradition so deeply that she arranged for a course of venison to be sent to the dinner as a gift, one course among what was, by all accounts, a lavish 7-course meal. From that point forward, the system only grew more structured, more codified, more carefully governed. Rules were written down. A warrant, it was decided, would not last forever. It would be granted for a period of up to 5 years at a time, subject to review, subject to renewal, and, crucially, subject to loss if standards ever slipped. A business that failed to maintain the quality that earned its warrant in the first place could see that warrant quietly not renewed, no scandal required, simply a private decision made behind closed doors that a standard was no longer being met. The tradition did not stop evolving once the Victorian era ended. In 1935, to mark the 25th anniversary of King George V's succession to the throne, the Royal Warrant Holders Association did something unusually ambitious. Its members built an entire house, filled from floor to ceiling with examples of their own trades and craftsmanship, furniture, jewelry, clothing, clockwork, and presented the finished structure to the king as a gift. Known as the King's House, it was originally built for the Ideal Home exhibition at Olympia in London, before later being dismantled and rebuilt in Surrey. It stands, even now, as one of the strangest and most striking physical monuments this entire tradition has ever produced. A literal house built from royal recognition. The modern scale of the system, even before the 2022 shake-up this story will turn to next, is worth appreciating on its own. In the years leading up to Queen Elizabeth's death, there were consistently more than 800 individual royal warrant holders active at any given time, spanning an almost unbelievable range of British trade and industry. Dry cleaners held warrants, fishmongers held warrants, agricultural machinery manufacturers and computer software companies held warrants, side by side on the very same official list. There has never been any requirement that a warrant-holding company be based in Britain or even majority British-owned, only that it consistently supply the household with genuine goods or services, sold on entirely commercial terms, rather than given away for royal publicity. Even the vertical transportation industry, elevator and lift manufacturers, found their way onto the list. One firm, Apex Lifts, earned its first warrant after installing 4 new passenger lifts and repairing existing equipment following the devastating fire at Windsor Castle in 1995. A small, practical act of service that nonetheless earned exactly the same formal recognition as a centuries-old perfumer on Jermyn Street. And there was one rule: arguably the most important rule in this entire tradition that never changed no matter how many centuries passed. A royal warrant is not granted to a company. It is granted to a person, a named individual within that company, known formally as the grantee. That distinction might sound like a small technical detail. It is not. It means that every single warrant in existence is, at its core, a personal act of trust between one specific member of the royal family and one specific named individual. Not a brand, not a logo. A person, vouching for another person, in writing, with the full weight of the crown behind it. That single detail is the hinge this entire modern story turns on, because if a warrant is personal, tied to the individual who grants it, rather than the institution they represent, then it follows, with brutal simplicity, that the warrant cannot outlive the person who signed it. When that person dies, the warrant does not transfer automatically to whoever inherits their title. It does not pass down like a piece of furniture or a portrait. It simply, quietly, immediately becomes void. It is worth sitting with just how strange this rule would look in almost any other context. Imagine any other centuries-old institution of recognition, a knighthood, an honorary title, a seat on a prestigious board, simply evaporating the instant the person who bestowed it passed away, regardless of how long ago it was granted or how faithfully it had been upheld. That is not how most systems of honor work. Most are designed, deliberately, to outlast the individual who first conferred them. The Royal Warrant is built the opposite way, on purpose, and has been for centuries. Its entire value rests on the idea that it reflects a living, current relationship, verified personally, rather than an inherited legacy status handed down automatically, like a title or an estate. This has happened before, more than once, in living memory. When Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, passed away in March of 2002, every warrant she had personally granted began an automatic countdown toward expiry, fully lapsing by 2007, 5 years after her death, exactly as the rules dictate. When Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, passed away in April of 2021, the warrants he had granted during his lifetime became void in that same instant, following that same unbending rule. So when the moment eventually came for Queen Elizabeth II herself, the largest, longest reigning grantor in the modern history of this tradition, the consequences were larger than anything the system had faced in generations, and that moment is where the next chapter of this story truly begins. Before that chapter unfolds, there is something worth pausing for. This channel exists to walk through exactly these kinds of institutions, the ones with centuries of quiet history sitting underneath a single modern headline. Staying subscribed means catching every piece of this timeline as it is laid out, in order, exactly as the record shows it happened, without skipping a single link in the chain. On the 8th of September, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died at Balmoral at the age of 96, after a reign of 70 years, the longest in British history. The world's attention, understandably, turned to grief, to ceremony, to the enormous machinery of a state funeral for a monarch most of the living population had never known Britain without. Almost no one, in that moment, was thinking about warrants. But behind the scenes, inside the offices of the Royal Warrant Holders Association and inside the boardrooms of roughly 800 companies across Britain and beyond, a very specific and very old rule had just quietly activated. Every warrant that carried Queen Elizabeth's name, every single one, built up patiently over 70 years of her reign, had, in that instant, become legally void. Not stripped away through any wrongdoing, not the result of any scandal touching any of those 800 businesses, simply the mechanical, unemotional consequence of a rule that has governed this tradition since long before any of those companies existed. The grant lives and dies with the grantor. In the days surrounding the funeral itself, as millions around the world watched the procession move through London, as world leaders gathered inside Westminster Abbey, and as a nation absorbed the reality of losing a monarch who had reigned since 1952, the fate of 800 commercial warrants, understandably registered as the smallest possible footnote. No headline that week led with the phrase, "Royal Warrants Voided." No commentator, in the middle of covering a state funeral, paused to explain the Lord Chamberlain's rules on grantor succession. And yet, underneath all of that grief and ceremony, this exact mechanical process was already unfolding, entirely unaffected by the scale of public attention elsewhere. The rule does not pause for mourning. It does not wait for a more convenient news cycle. It simply activates, the instant the grantor's life ends, regardless of who is watching. The businesses affected were not small or obscure. They included some of the most recognizable names in British commerce, brands whose royal arms had sat on packaging and stationery for decades, in some cases for generations. Brands like Cadbury, like Boots, like Weetabix, alongside hundreds of smaller, lesser-known suppliers who had spent years quietly earning their place on that list. Reporting from the time captured the scale of it plainly. Roughly 800 brands, all needing to reapply, all facing the same uncertain question at once. Would the new king choose them again? The palace did not leave those companies in complete limbo. A grace period was extended, allowing businesses to continue displaying the royal arms for up to 2 years following the Queen's death, even while their warrants were technically void, giving the new reign time to organize itself and giving those companies time to prepare their case for reappointment. But a grace period is not a guarantee. 2 years is not forever, and behind that grace period sat an unavoidable deadline. By September of 2024, every single one of those old voided warrants would fully and finally expire, whether or not a new one had been granted to replace it. It is worth understanding just how enormous the list actually was that went silent that day. By the time of her death, Queen Elizabeth had personally granted warrants across the entirety of her 70-year reign, the longest span of any monarch in British history, and by extension, the largest single body of individual royal recognition ever built by one person in this tradition. Every one of those decades of quiet, personal choice, evaluating suppliers, renewing trust, occasionally declining to renew it, collapsed into void status in a single afternoon. The unavoidable mathematics of a rule, older than any of the companies affected by it. Industry reporting from the weeks immediately following her death captured the scramble taking place inside boardrooms across the country. Cadbury, Boots, and Weetabix were specifically named among the roughly 800 brands now facing the prospect of formally reapplying for a recognition some of them had held, uninterrupted, for generations. None of these companies had done anything wrong. None of them were being punished. They were simply caught inside a rule that treats every royal warrant as a living relationship rather than a permanent trophy, a relationship that, by definition, cannot survive the death of the person who built it. For nearly 2 years after the Queen's death, King Charles III held the authority to grant warrants entirely alone, the sole grantor in a system built for centuries around multiple simultaneous royal patrons. It was not until May of 2024, nearly 2 full years into his reign, that a second name finally joined his on the official record. Queen Camilla issued her first warrants that month, marking the very first time in her life that any company anywhere could describe itself as appointed to her personally. That detail deserves to be sat with for a moment, because it is easy to miss just how significant it actually was. Camilla had been part of this family, in one role or another, for decades. She had stood beside Charles through his rise to the throne, through a coronation watched by the world, and yet, until May of 2024, not a single company on earth held a royal warrant bearing her name. Every warrant she granted from that point forward was new, not inherited, not passed down, chosen, personally, by her, for the very first time. The choices King Charles and Queen Camilla made in rebuilding this list were not random, and they were not simply a matter of restoring the old names automatically. Some familiar brands returned to the list. Others, despite decades of prior warrants under earlier monarchs, did not make the cut this time, quietly falling away from a list that had once included them. with no public explanation required or given, exactly as the rules of this tradition have always allowed. Newer names appeared as well, brands that had never held a warrant under any previous monarch, now finding themselves, for the first time, granted this exact same recognition. Reports from 2025 describe brands like the ginger ale maker Schweppes and the skincare company Heaven Health and Beauty receiving warrants under the new King and Queen, joining a rebuilt list that, by late 2025, had grown to roughly 593 active holders, granted specifically by Charles and Camilla since his accession. The scale of that first rebuilding wave, in May of 2024, deserves its own moment of attention. A total of 145 companies received formal appointments through that initial application process, each one representing months of paperwork, review, and verification behind palace doors. A genuine reconstruction project, disguised, to most of the public, as a handful of unremarkable business headlines scattered across the year. Of those 145, 7 companies were notable enough and consistent enough in their supply to both households to receive a second warrant from Queen Camilla directly, on top of the warrant they had already received from King Charles. Other names entered the record too, each one a small data point in a much larger rebuilding project happening in near total public silence. Jaguar Land Rover and the handbag maker Lana London received warrants from Queen Camilla during this period. Camel Valley Vineyards, an English sparkling wine producer, saw its warrant renewed and expanded under the new reign. A sustainable cleaning products manufacturer called Camanglia received its own warrant in 2025, its selection publicly framed as part of a broader emphasis, championed heavily by King Charles throughout his time as both prince and monarch, on environmental responsibility and sustainable British manufacturing. None of these individual grants made front-page news on their own. Together, they represent the slow, deliberate rebuilding of an 800-year-old tradition, one signature at a time, following the death of the woman who had presided over it for 70 years. Some of the brand histories running through this rebuilding period stretch back astonishingly far. Twinings, the tea company; Bollinger, the champagne house; Tanqueray, the gin distiller; and Gordon's, another gin maker with deep royal ties. All count among the food and drink suppliers whose relationship with the crown has been documented across multiple reigns, sometimes multiple centuries. Heinz, the American food company, first received a royal warrant not under Elizabeth II at all, but under her father, King George VI, decades earlier, a relationship of trust that Elizabeth chose to continue and renew herself once she took the throne. Beyond the food and drink world, brands like Aston Martin, Jaguar, Land Rover, Boots, Axminster Carpets, the Irish Linen Company, and Yardley London have all, at various points, carried the royal arms into markets around the world, each one leaning on that recognition as a signal of trust that ordinary advertising simply cannot replicate. There is something quietly poetic in watching this same rebuilding pattern repeat itself now, decades and centuries after it first began. Every one of those legacy relationships, Twinings, Heinz, Aston Martin, all of it, had to be reconsidered and, in most cases, reconfirmed following Queen Elizabeth's death, exactly the same as it would need to be reconsidered again whenever the next transition in this family eventually comes. The system does not care how famous a brand is or how long its relationship with the crown has lasted. It only cares whether the current grantor, the specific living person holding that authority right now, chooses to extend it forward. Throughout this entire 2-year rebuilding process, one fact remained constant and unchanged. Only 2 people in the entire United Kingdom held the legal authority to grant a royal warrant: the King, and, from May of 2024 onward, the Queen beside him. Not the Prince of Wales, not the Princess of Wales, not any other member of the royal family, regardless of their title, their public role, or their proximity to the crown. For the entirety of this reign up to that point, this specific form of institutional authority belonged exclusively and only to the two people sitting closest to the throne itself. That exclusivity is not a small detail. It is, in fact, the single most important piece of context required to understand why what happened next carried the historical weight that it did. Because in a tradition stretching back 9 centuries, where this authority has, for the entirety of the modern reign, belonged only to the reigning monarch and his consort, any expansion of who holds it is not a routine administrative update. It is a genuinely rare event. And the last time anything comparable happened involved a very specific name, from a very specific year, that almost no one watching in real time remembered. In July of 2025, Buckingham Palace confirmed a decision that had been quietly developing behind the scenes, one that would not fully take effect for close to a year, but whose significance was immediate the moment it became public. King Charles III had formally appointed his son and daughter-in-law, William, the Prince of Wales, and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, as additional Grantors of Royal Warrants. To understand exactly what that sentence means, and why it landed as such a genuine surprise, even to people who follow the monarchy closely, it helps to be precise about what a grantor actually is. According to the Royal Warrant Holders Association itself, a grantor is simply the individual member of the royal family who holds the personal legal authority to award a royal warrant of appointment. The monarch decides who is permitted to hold that title. For the entire span of this reign, up to July of 2025, exactly 2 people held it. After this announcement, for the first time, that number would become 4. The timing attached to the announcement was carefully specified from the very beginning. William and Catherine's authority as grantors would not begin the instant the news broke. It would take effect starting in the spring of 2026, the point at which applications for new royal warrants under their names would formally open for the first time in history. Companies hoping to be considered would need to demonstrate, under the same standards applied to every other grantor, a regular and ongoing supply of products or services to the royal household, sustained consistently across a meaningful stretch of years, exactly as the Royal Warrant Holders Association describes on its own official guidance for applicants. Here is where the story asks the audience to travel back in time one more time, because the true scale of this announcement cannot be understood without a single, specific historical comparison. The last time a Princess of Wales personally held this kind of authority to grant royal warrants was in 1910, under Queen Mary. 1910, not a typo, not an exaggeration for effect, a documented historical fact sitting in the official record of British royal warrant history. That means an entire century, plus more than a decade further still, passed before a Princess of Wales held this exact authority again. Diana, Princess of Wales, one of the most globally famous women of the 20th century, never held it. It simply was not part of her role. And now, in 2026, it belongs to Catherine. There is another layer to that 1910 precedent worth including, because it sharpens exactly how rare this moment truly is. Queen Mary held her own warrant, granting authority not as a passing courtesy, but as a formally recognized part of her role within a family that, at the time, still operated under a very different, more rigid structure of royal duties than the monarchy uses today. Her authority as a grantor sat within the official historical record of royal warrant holders for years afterward, catalogued precisely alongside every other grantor across every reign, from George III all the way through to Queen Elizabeth II. It is specifically because that record has been so carefully, formally kept for so long, that historians and royal commentators were able to state with confidence, the instant this 2025 announcement broke, exactly how long it had actually been since anyone in Catherine's specific position held this kind of power. Not an estimate, not a rough sense of it being a while, a documented, dated, verifiable gap of more than a century. It is worth being extremely precise here, because precision is exactly what a story like this deserves, rather than exaggeration. This new authority does not replace anything King Charles and Queen Camilla already grant. It does not transfer power away from them in any sense. It sits alongside their existing authority, creating, for the very first time in this reign, 4 simultaneous streams of this centuries-old tradition running at once, rather than the 2 the public has known since 2022. William and Catherine will be able to personally select companies and individuals who have consistently supplied their own household and extend to those chosen suppliers the right to display a mark of recognition that, by its very design, cannot be purchased, cannot be negotiated, and cannot be claimed by anyone the family has not personally chosen. Royal commentators who cover this world closely reacted to the announcement with genuine, unforced enthusiasm, and it is worth including their reaction directly because it captures something a simple description of the mechanics cannot. One veteran royal journalist described the Royal Warrant, in general, as the gold standard of endorsements available anywhere in British commercial life, and specifically predicted that once Catherine's authority activates, her warrant in particular would become especially sought after among businesses hoping to earn it. That is not palace spin. That is an outside observer, someone who has spent a career watching this exact system operate, describing what this moment actually represents within the world of British business and prestige. It is worth remembering, too, that this entire announcement did not arrive in isolation. It landed inside a year already packed with royal milestones, official visits, public engagements, and the ordinary, continuous rhythm of a working monarchy going about its business. Amid all of that noise, this specific piece of news, dense with historical and procedural detail, still managed to cut through, still managed to generate genuine, sustained conversation among people who follow this institution closely. That alone says something about how much weight this particular kind of announcement still carries, even in an era saturated with royal headlines competing for attention every single week. There is a reason a warrant carries that kind of weight, and it goes beyond simple sentiment or tradition for its own sake. A royal warrant tells the public something that no amount of advertising spending can replicate. It says that a real living relationship exists between a business and the royal household, sustained not for a single transaction, but across years, verified not through marketing claims, but through actual, ongoing use. Businesses holding a warrant are permitted to display the relevant royal arms, the relevant coat of arms, on their products, their premises, and their advertising. But the rules governing that display are notably strict. A royal warrant does not entitle a company to claim or imply any kind of exclusivity of supply. It cannot say it is the only supplier of its kind to the household. It can only say, truthfully, that the household chooses to use what it makes, consistently, over time. It should also be said plainly, because accuracy matters more here than drama, that not every kind of business is even eligible to apply. Professional services, things like legal firms, banks, and certain financial institutions, are explicitly excluded from the entire warrant system, regardless of any relationship they might have with the royal household. This is a system built specifically around the tangible supply of goods and services, the kind of relationship a monarch, or in this new case, a future king and queen consort, can personally vouch for through years of direct, lived experience rather than institutional paperwork. Public reaction to the announcement, once it did filter out beyond specialist royal reporting, tended to focus overwhelmingly on the historical comparison to 1910, rather than on the mechanics of the warrant system itself. And that focus is, in fairness, entirely understandable. A single fact that this exact authority has not touched a Princess of Wales in over 100 years does more to communicate the genuine rarity of this moment than any amount of technical explanation about application forms and 5-year review cycles ever could. It is the kind of detail that survives being repeated in a headline, condensed into a single sentence, and still lands with its full weight intact. The application process itself follows a structure that has been refined and formalized over generations, now overseen jointly by the Royal Warrant Holders Association and the Lord Chamberlain's Office. Applications for new royal warrants of appointment to any of the 4 current grantors open specifically in May and June of each year. eligible companies must complete a formal application form, alongside what is called a trading review form, documenting the history and consistency of their supply relationship with the household. In more recent years, applicants have also been required to complete a sustainability criteria assessment, reflecting a modern emphasis, pushed heavily by King Charles throughout both his time as Prince of Wales and now as monarch, on environmental responsibility as a genuine factor in who earns this recognition and who does not. And just as with every warrant granted before it, the same foundational rule that governed Charles and Camilla's rebuilding project will govern William and Catherine's as well. Every warrant they eventually grant will be tied to a named individual, a grantee, within the company receiving it, not to the company as an abstract entity. If that individual leaves the business, dies, or the company itself changes hands entirely, the warrant automatically triggers for review, exactly as it always has. This is, in a very real sense, the most human detail buried inside an otherwise bureaucratic system. A royal warrant has never been a transaction between an institution and a brand. It has always been a relationship between one specific person wearing a crown and one specific person running a business, renewed or ended, based entirely on whether that relationship continues to hold up under real, lived scrutiny. Once granted, a warrant is never permanent, and it was never designed to be. It typically runs for a period of up to 5 years before facing formal review. During that review, quality and consistency of supply are reassessed, and a warrant can, in fact, be declined for renewal if the standard that originally earned it has slipped. A warrant can also be cancelled outright at any point and is automatically triggered for review if a named grantee dies, leaves the company entirely, or if the business itself is sold or enters bankruptcy. None of this happens through public scandal or headline controversy. It happens quietly, through internal review, exactly the way it has happened for nearly 2 centuries. It is also worth being clear about who actually administers all of this on a day-to-day basis, because it is not, strictly speaking, the palace itself. The Royal Warrant Holders Association, that same organization first formed by proud tradespeople gathering for a birthday celebration back in 1840, is not part of the royal household at all. It is an independent body, belonging entirely to its own members, the warrant holders themselves, and it is this association that handles initial inquiries, distributes the correct application forms, and advises businesses on the proper interpretation of what are formally known as the Lord Chamberlain's rules, the specific guidelines governing exactly how a warrant may be earned, displayed, and eventually lost. When William and Catherine's applications open in spring of 2026, it will be this same association, working alongside the household, guiding businesses through the exact same process that has now operated in one form or another for close to 2 centuries. The sustainability emphasis attached to modern applications is not a minor footnote either. It reflects a set of priorities King Charles championed publicly for decades, long before he ever wore the crown, and it has become one of the clearest ways this modern era of warrant giving differs from earlier reigns. Companies are now expected to demonstrate genuine environmental and ethical responsibility as part of their application, a requirement that did not meaningfully exist in this form under Queen Elizabeth, and one that industry observers widely expect William and Catherine to carry forward and potentially expand further, given both of their own public records of environmental advocacy throughout their public lives. All of this context matters enormously for understanding what William and Catherine are actually about to inherit come spring of 2026. They are not stepping into a symbolic, ceremonial title with no real function attached to it. They are stepping into the exact same rigorous, carefully governed system that Charles and Camilla themselves navigated from 2022 through 2024, the same system that has quietly shaped which British businesses can call themselves royally appointed since the year 1840, and whose roots reach back even further, to a single charter signed in 1155. Before the final chapter of this story unfolds, there is a moment worth taking here. Everything laid out so far, the origins in the 1100s, the explosion under Victoria, the sudden silence following the Queen's death in 2022, the careful 2-year rebuilding under Charles and Camilla, all of it exists to explain why this one announcement in July of 2025 carries as much weight as it does. Staying subscribed means being present for the next chapter of this exact same institution, the moment it finally becomes real, in the spring of next year. Every detail traced across this story, the charter signed in 1155, the Victorian explosion that built the Royal Warrant Holders Association in 1840, the sudden silence that fell across 800 British businesses on the 8th of September, 2022, and the careful 2-year rebuilding that followed. All of it converges on a single date sitting on the calendar just ahead, spring of 2026. That is the moment this stops being an announcement and becomes a lived reality. That is when applications for royal warrants under William and Catherine officially open for the very first time in the history of the British monarchy, inviting businesses across the country, some family-run for generations, some global names already familiar to households everywhere, to formally apply for a mark of recognition that has never before carried these 2 specific names. It is worth pausing, one final time, on just how measured and deliberate this entire process has been from the very beginning. Nothing about it has moved quickly. From the Queen's death in September of 2022, to the 2-year grace period that followed, to Charles and Camilla issuing their own first warrants in May of 2024, to the announcement of William and Catherine's new authority in July of 2025, to the activation of that authority finally arriving in spring of 2026, this has been a nearly 4-year unfolding of a single, connected institutional story. Every step has followed rules written down, in some form, for generations. Nothing has been improvised. Nothing has been rushed. And that, ultimately, is what makes this story worth telling in full, rather than reducing it to a single, isolated headline about 2 new titles. What changed in 2025 is not the rulebook itself. The rulebook, remarkably, has barely changed at all across nearly 2 centuries of formal governance, and traces its philosophical roots back even further than that, to a single medieval charter granted to a guild of weavers 900 years ago. What changed is simply who, for the very first time since Queen Mary held this exact authority as Princess of Wales back in 1910, gets to hold the pen. That is not a small thing. It is the kind of quiet, historically documented shift that rarely dominates a single day's headlines, precisely because it does not involve scandal, conflict, or controversy. It involves paperwork, precedent, and patience, 3 things that rarely trend online, and yet, once genuinely understood in full context, are almost impossible to look away from. A future king and a future queen consort, for the first time in this family's modern history, will soon hold the power to personally choose which British businesses earn one of the oldest and most respected marks of trust in the country's entire commercial history. There is a broader pattern worth stepping back to see clearly, one that stretches far beyond just this one family, this one announcement, or this one spring deadline. Britain is not the only monarchy that has ever used this exact tool. Several other European royal families, including those of Denmark, Sweden, and Luxembourg, have granted comparable warrants of their own across their respective histories, each one built on the same essential idea, that a monarch's personal, ongoing use of a product or service is itself a form of currency, a kind of trust that money cannot manufacture on its own. What makes the British version so enduring, so widely recognized, and so deeply woven into the country's own sense of commercial identity is simply how long it has run, continuously, in something close to its current form, and how carefully every transition within it, including this one, has been documented, governed, and preserved. It is also worth remembering, one final time, exactly what a royal warrant does not do, because that boundary matters just as much as everything it does grant. It does not guarantee a company's success. It does not promise exclusivity. It does not shield a business from ordinary market competition, ordinary financial pressure, or ordinary public scrutiny. Warrant holders operate on strictly commercial terms with the royal household, paying and being paid exactly as any other business relationship would require, with no discount extended purely for the prestige of the arrangement. What a warrant grants, and all it has ever truly granted across 9 centuries of this tradition, is permission to say something true, publicly, permanently, for as long as that trust continues to hold. This business has served the Crown consistently, and the Crown has chosen, deliberately and personally, to keep saying yes. That single sentence, permission to say something true, is really the entire story compressed into its simplest possible form. Every detail traced through this narrative, the weavers of 1155, the swans and cranes of Henry VIII's court, the comb maker on Jermyn Street, the 2,000 warrants granted across Victoria's 63 years, the King's House built and gifted in 1935, the silent, mechanical voiding of 800 warrants in a single September afternoon in 2022, the careful 2-year rebuilding that followed, and now, finally, the extension of this exact same permission to a Prince and Princess of Wales for the first time in over a century. All of it exists to answer one enduring question: who, at any given moment in British history, does the Crown choose to trust publicly and permanently with its own name? What happens next is, in a very real sense, unwritten. No one outside the palace currently knows which companies will be the very first to receive a warrant bearing William's name, or the very first in over a century to receive one bearing Catherine's. Will it be a business the family has quietly used for years, finally receiving public recognition for a relationship that has existed in private all along? Will it be a newer name, chosen specifically to reflect the priorities this next generation wants closely associated with their public identity, the same way sustainability became a defining thread running through so many of Charles and Camilla's own selections? Will William, whose own public work has leaned heavily toward conservation and the environment through initiatives he has championed for years, favor businesses built around exactly those values? Will Catherine, given her own long-standing public focus on early childhood development and family well-being, look toward suppliers and services connected in some way to that same area of interest? These are reasonable, grounded questions to ask, built entirely on the public record of what this couple has already spent years choosing to prioritize. They are not confirmed outcomes, and nothing here should be mistaken for a prediction dressed up as fact. They are simply the kind of open, honest questions that this specific moment, in this specific institution's history, naturally invites. What can be said with total confidence is only what the record itself already shows: that this authority has been extended, that it activates in spring of 2026, that the last comparable moment for a Princess of Wales sits over a century in the past, and that an institution nearly 900 years old, built one charter, one guild, one dinner, one signature at a time, is about to add a new chapter that no one currently alive has ever seen written before. These are not questions this story can answer today, because the answers themselves do not exist yet. They exist only in the spring of next year, when the applications finally open, and the choices, for the first time, become real. There is one more dimension to this story worth holding on to before it closes, and it has nothing to do with palaces, paperwork, or precedent. It has to do with the hundreds of small business owners across Britain right now: family bakers, independent perfumers, sustainable manufacturers, vineyard owners, craftspeople of every kind, who will spend the coming months quietly preparing applications they have no guarantee of winning. For most of them, this is not about publicity in the way the public might assume. It is about decades of careful, consistent work, finally being placed in front of two people who will decide, personally and directly, whether that work has earned one of the oldest marks of trust their country has ever offered. Whatever the outcome, the mere existence of that choice, now sitting in the hands of William and Catherine for the first time, changes the shape of what it means to earn recognition from this specific royal household going forward, for every business bold enough to apply. That is precisely where this story will pick back up. When spring arrives and the first names under William and Catherine's authority are finally made public, this channel will return to trace exactly who made that list, which businesses earned this historic first, and what those specific choices reveal about the priorities this next generation intends to carry forward. Anyone who does not want to miss the exact moment those names become public should be subscribed well before that day arrives, because once the announcement lands, this is a story that will move quickly, and it will not circle back to wait for anyone watching late.